I hear it all the time. Oh, so what do you do the rest of the year when the Royal's not on? So it's a great question because the answer is a lot.
Today, I'm speaking with Paige Mawson, Manager of Features and Education at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, where she helps to bring Canada's most historic event to life through immersive learning, community, connection, and really great storytelling.
I liaise a lot with school boards and I stay super up to date on the curriculum and any changes that are coming, making sure that we're designing activities that meet classroom goals as well.
In this episode, we unpack the behind-the-scenes teamwork that Paige coordinates daily.
My role is highly collaborative and that I have to be, engaging with the entire Royal team to figure out how are we telling this story.
And we also look at how Paige helps to connect food and people to Canada's food system.
My name's Paige. I am the Manager of Features and Education at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, which is a mouthful. But I started this role in 2022, and I can give a little bit of context about what the Royal is to start, and then kind of go into what my role at the Royal is to kind of tie the whole picture together. So very high level, the Royal is one of the largest indoor combined equestrian and agricultural events in the world. So it was started in 1922 with the goal of really gathering and celebrating Canadian agriculture. So that includes food and livestock, as well as the actual agricultural products like field crops and vegetables. And then another key goal was education of the Canadian agri-food industry, because the event is located in Toronto, right downtown at Exhibition Place. So it represents a really cool opportunity to showcase Canada's food system and connect with a group of constituents that might not be able to have so much access to rural life and the food system. So that's a really exciting aspect of what the Royal is and what we do. So in 1922, we got Royal Assent to use the royal title from the King of England, King George V, which is kind of fancy. So it began with really lofty ambitions of, connecting the country and the city in Toronto and showcasing the best of Canada, really, to Canadians and to the world. So today it's grown a bit, and we still have about 300,000 visitors that come in every year from Canada and across the world. And we host, international equestrian events, livestock competitions, food competitions, really trying to crown and celebrate champions from all across the country. So really, to sum it up, the heart of what we do is the country coming to the city. So that leads me into my role a little bit, which is that opportunity for exposure, for connecting, and for, making connections. So my role, again, as Manager of Features and Education. So there's two parts to it, even more complicated. So the first pillar of my role is obviously the education side. So it's really my job to ensure that there are those opportunities for meaningful connections into the agri-food sector at the fair. So I'm collaborating with our commodity partners, with our educational institution partners, with programming speakers and stages, designing activities, collaborating with school boards to facilitate field trips and to ensure curriculum connectedness to the Ontario curriculum specifically. So that's ranging from kindergartens all the way through post-secondary. So really running the gamut of educational programming that we're running here. So it's a big encompassing pillar, education, with really the goal being to celebrate champions and to foster the feelings of fun and excitement and community.
Wow. Okay. Where do I start in terms of a follow-up with that? We could definitely dive deeper into the Royal. We could dive deeper into your role. But, I first have to say, I love the Royal. It's such a, as you mentioned, it's bringing the rural, not the rural, but bringing a side that a lot of people in the city might not necessarily see. A lot of people's exposure, some frankly don't even get any of it. The only thing is through education through the classroom. So, that fair is just such a fun, it's fun. First and foremost, it's a fun experience to be able to seeing animals is pretty cool. Just starting at that pillar, but then the education piece, as you've mentioned, there's so many different aspects in terms of, whether it's learning about butter through the butter sculpture competitions, or if it's about learning about about horses through the shows. There's just so much to it. And it's kind of and also to see how it's been a staple for so many years. Like a lot of things do not last like 5 years, let alone like, as you said, over 100. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we're really proud of that sort of legacy and tradition at the fair. And it's so cool that we've stayed so true to our founding principles of being this point of connection and fostering these educational opportunities, and being really that point of outreach. The Royal is special in that its location is right downtown. So the country really is physically coming into the city, which is so fun, and very special. We also do a lot in the food space, because, I think that food is something that ties everybody together. We connect producers to, Michelin star chefs, and then invite folks to really make the connection between the folks who work in the agri-food sector to the folks who, work on the culinary side, and then to doing it themselves and getting people involved and cooking themselves. So that's a really special piece as well, apart from everything else that we do. It's an example of us trying to create those hands-on opportunities and really celebrating the Canadian food system writ large.
I love that. That is actually in part why this podcast is here, to better show and connect all the different roles, whether it's, the farmers, whether it's the food producers, whether it's the, not so much chefs on this podcast, but even so, showing that everything is interconnected. And I think that's a key word that's come up multiple times as you've spoken, is this connection piece. And I'm wondering, like, why, we're jumping ahead here, but why do you think that this connection is maybe not necessarily there? Like, why are there so many gaps when it comes to making these connections?
Yeah, I think that exposure is really the biggest piece. I think that a lot of folks who don't necessarily have the opportunities to be involved with animals or really, ask questions of a farmer or producer, tend to have this perception, and I find it's sort of the biggest gap, and what we're trying to address at the Royal, have this sense that agriculture is something super far removed from meat. It's sort of a mystifying, opaque process that happens, and then food kind of magically appears in the grocery store. So in reality, we're trying to break down those barriers and say the food system is super complicated, and there's so much that goes into it, and it touches so many aspects, from law to sustainability to, like marketing and communications and the messaging around it, to logistics and transportation, and of course, like computer science and coding. There's so many different aspects that make this process that is the agri-food sector and the food system kind of keep trucking along. So I think the biggest barrier is just having an inviting space to really extend a hand and say, hey, come on in, come ask questions, be a part of this together with us, because ultimately we are all together in it because everybody's got to eat.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what I'm super passionate about.
I totally understand that. And even as you're mentioning it, even within the agri-food, like there's silos even within. So you think about like a food conference, usually it's, well, for the food scientists, or maybe it's for the restaurant chefs, or maybe it's for the farmer. Like, it's just, even within its own sector, it can get very siloed. And as you've mentioned, like with the Royal, it brings all these different types of people together, from people who will never have a job maybe in agriculture to people who that they've done for 5 family generations. It's bringing all those people together. And, I'd love to dive a little bit more about your role in making this happen, because it's not something that can just magically happen. I know, as much as people would maybe like that to be the case, it takes a lot of work in making those connections. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about your role and how that happens. Maybe we can talk about the process of how each Royal comes to be, because it's only like a few weeks, or it feels like it's, I don't know. You put it, you'll be able to.
It's only 10 days.
10 days, which is like not even 2 weeks. And, you focus for the whole year. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about the behind the scenes, like how you pick who to come, what your role is. I'll let you take the stage.
Oh, absolutely. So, I hear it all the time. Oh, so what do you do the rest of the year when the Royal's not on? So it's a great question, because the answer is a lot. So with the Royal being quite a complex event with, we're wearing a lot of different hats, and we really are trying to bring everybody together from, the the culinary side to, the producer side to our commodity groups, and then the education side. So there's so many constituents that we're working with. So it really is a full-time process to plan for the fair. So, I mean, in terms of stages of planning for our fair, we have what I would probably term like ideation, which is sort of the phase we're in right now in January, sort of beginning of the year, where as a royal team, we're sitting down and we're saying, hey, what is it that we'd like to see out of this next fair? What are areas we can improve on? What are our big goals? And then I say we move into the next process, which is planning, really. And it's a lot of planning. So that entails, meeting with constituent groups. It entails, all the logistics that go into the fair. So it's parking plans, it's all the work orders that need to happen to make the execution possible. And then we move into that execution phase, which is not just the 10 days itself. I would say it starts probably at least 2 months before that. We're in full execution mode where, hiring and managing staff. Our team is pretty small to start for most of the year. We're a team of about 10 people. It sort of fluctuates a little bit, but it ranges around there. And then we grow pretty exponentially in that sort of execution phase to simply do all the things that need to get done to make the fair possible. So it's transforming the exhibition place grounds into a space ready to take on the country coming in. So we do a lot of that. And then, we go pretty hard and we execute the fair itself. And then we have our sort of debrief roundup period, which is a lot of just post-analysis. What goals do we feel we really hit? What could we improve upon, and engaging in that sort of post-event work. And so that's sort of the cadence of the year at the Royal itself and sort of the rhythm of what we do as a team. My role touches a lot of different aspects of the fair, because I think what's unique about my role within the team is that education is so central to what we do. Not that the other roles aren't central, but there's opportunities for education literally everywhere. So, it's in the food aspects, in the horse palace and the Colosseum with the equestrian competitions, it's in the livestock rings, it's all the displays for the agriculture shows. So it's all of these pieces working together. So my role is highly collaborative, and that I have to be, engaging with the entire royal team to figure out how are we telling this story. And like I mentioned earlier, how are we really extending that, outreached hand to our visitors to say, come on in. Come ask questions. So I do a lot of collaboration with the royal team and then all of our partners who actually help to execute the educational programming. And then I liaise a lot with school boards, and I stay super up to date on the curriculum and any changes that are coming, making sure that we're designing activities that meet classroom goals as well. So things for students to do at the fair that really support teachers and educators in achieving their learning goals, while also being super fun and hopefully really memorable.
Like, how do you even decide what, I know you obviously mentioned what's going on in the classrooms right now and speaking with educators, but does it happen organically? Do you set that goal at the beginning of January that, we want to speak specifically to that? What helps guide the decisions about the specific areas? Because there's a lot.
There's so many, and there's, almost infinite possibilities of what you could talk about when it comes to agri-food. And I'm sure you feel that as well in terms of investigating all the different jobs and careers in the agri-food sector. That's a massive chunk of education as well. So it really comes down to, again, trying to show variety. The Royal touches a lot of things, and we have a lot of things going on. So trying to sort of have some variety of what we're focusing on. So livestock, as well as, horticulture, as well as the culinary side. So making sure that we're trying to stay across all these elements and having programming that speaks to all of it. So trying to be a little bit for everyone is really the goal. And I don't know that we always succeed at that, because there is just so much, but we're always trying to make sure that we're really broadening the perspective. Okay.
Just, I guess, to put it more into perspective, would you be able to give some specific examples of some educational pieces that might be, just because, someone might have not gone to the Royal before, they might just say, do you just go look at the cows and then you do a fill in the blank about it? Would you just provide a few examples just to really cement the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So from our school group side, we have a myriad of sort of like online packages that you can do ahead of the fair, and then there's like a worksheet tied to the fair itself. So we usually create one, about the animal ambassador every year. So for example, when we had our two lovely alpaca ambassadors, we were really looking at the sustainability of alpaca fiber, and so we took that angle on it. And so you watch the videos meeting them, you got to meet them at the fair, and then did a worksheet completed that about the animal ambassadors. So really tying it all together. So that's one example for like little kids that we try and execute on and make it fun and fluffy and cute if we can.
Love it.
Always a win, right? Love it. And then, as we get into the high school grades, we have, for example, like a geography assignment where you have to go speak to some exhibitors, figure out, where is their operation? What commodities are they working in? And mark it on the map and kind of think about the landscape of Ontario. We have exhibitors from outside of Ontario, but a majority do come from a little bit more locally. So that's sort of the assignment there. And full credit to our exhibitors. They are, even though they're there to compete and it's a very intense process and there's so much work that goes into it, they are by and large so wonderful about engaging with the public and, again, really being those great ambassadors of answering questions and being really engaged, which is awesome. And then, for general visitors, there are so many opportunities. I mean, even from the petting farm, there's educational signage everywhere about the animals you're seeing and opportunities to learn more, directing you to, for example, if there's sheep in the petting farm, then directing you to the Ontario Sheep Federation, who might be on site. So being able to go then ask more questions if you're curious and want to learn more. And then there's multiple avenues to sort of hear speakers. We typically have stages that are programmed with content experts, and the subject matter can range really widely, again, because there's so much going on. There's usually always some kind of presentation or workshop going on as well, in case you wanted to kind of delve into something that specifically interests you, or you're just kind of curious and want to know more.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That does put into perspective about the different, everything is tailored from elementary level up to high school to the general public. And there's just, I guess it's, as a general public member, you can get as much out of it as you would like. You could just look at the show, do some shopping and leave. But then if you really wanted to go in depth, you could really talk to people, like learn. There's a lot of thought that's put in, and that's really cool. And I guess I wanted to know about like, how did you get into this world? Because I feel, are you one of the people that you had exposure to agriculture young and then you were there, or maybe you were someone who got more interested later on in life? I'd just love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did have exposure to the Royal growing up. The Royal specifically, I grew up competing in the equestrian side. So I was very familiar with that side of the fair, but of course there's so much more to it that I sort of, when you're there and again you're competing, you're very much in your own zone. So I think, coming back to it a little bit later in life has been so cool. But my personal journey to coming to this role at the fair, I have a background in museum studies, which doesn't necessarily seem particularly connected. But so my training is in education in informal learning environments. So basically learning outside of a classroom, right? Which is what museums are. You're engaging in storytelling, you are learning, but you're not sitting, at a desk necessarily. And so coming out of my degree, I saw that the Royal was gearing up for their 100th anniversary and looking to kind of fill this education role. And I thought, I know the Royal from the equestrian side, but there really is so many ways in which that event functions like a pop-up museum for 10 days. Maybe I should throw my hat in the ring. And so I did, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
Okay, I love that. See, you're going to be the example that I give when people are like, the weird careers. It's like, what's your passion? We can connect it to food. Well, now I have the one where it's like that museum studies. I love that piece that you are like a walking example as well about how no matter what you are into, like there can be something that touches into agriculture or it touches into food. And it's not, there's just so many different types of people that make it go. And have you found have you found as you've been working with the Royal, has there been anything that has surprised you, maybe like misconceptions that come up often that you've learned, or maybe something that you're trying to really get the public to learn more about? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what's unique about my role is that I'm not a content matter expert across all these things. I don't think one person could be a content matter expert across everything that the Royal does. So I've been learning so much, which is awesome. And I love doing that. I think, again, like from a very high level, the broadest misconception is that agriculture is disconnected from folks who don't necessarily actively farm or live in a rural community. You know, there are obviously specific misconceptions. You know, we still get the chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That's still a thing, in case anyone was wondering.
Okay. I'm actually surprised.
It can happen. It comes up. It comes up. There are always going to be those things, and those conversations are super important. But I think my role is a little bit to have a broader sort of view on things and a little bit more of a bird's eye view, and to think about bridging the gap in the sense of the disconnect between agriculture being something super removed, as opposed to what I believe it is, which is super integrated into everyday life and, you know, really a field that provides a lot of opportunity for engagement.
Hey there, before we continue this conversation, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Egg Careers. If you're listening to this conversation and you're thinking that, hey, maybe I want a career in agriculture, then Egg Careers is the perfect place to start. It's a leading job board for agriculture and food careers, with thousands of opportunities from internships and entry-level roles to specialized industry jobs. You can explore career pathways, find real job postings, and even access resources to help build your resume and prepare for interviews. Explore what's out there on eggcareers.com to find roles that match your interests, your skills, and the kind of impact that you want to make. You can't have food without egg. Thank you so much to our friends over at Egg Careers. Now let's continue listening to Paige. So I'm just thinking about those who might not have exposure to food or agriculture. Like you did mention that people have more exposure than they realize. I guess I'm trying to say is, what do you think, where should people be seeking out these experiences if they don't know where to start, period? What would be your suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, the Royal is like a very big example of something that happens all across Ontario and all across Canada, and that is sort of the local agricultural fairs. These are awesome events that gather folks in these communities to do much the same of what the Royal does. We just do it in Toronto, which is unique and on a little bit of a bigger scale. But a lot of these agricultural fairs are far older than the Royal. There's so much history and tradition, and they happen in so many communities. So the Ontario Association of Agricultural Societies, for example, has a great list and schedule of all of these events that happen typically in the summer and through the fall. They're a really great opportunity to go kind of take it all in and to ask questions and to try and engage and kind of see if the agriculture field could be a fit for you or something that you're interested in learning more about. They're also fun, which is a bonus. They're you know, celebrations of the agriculture world, and they're about bringing communities together. So I would say that that's honestly a wonderful start in terms of exploring more, because you get to sort of make those connections, have fun at the same time, and also learn a little bit more about the history.
Yeah, I love that's actually a really good suggestion, because for they happen, as you mentioned, in the summer months. But what's really great about the agri-food side as well is it's a very tangible like field. Like you get to see the growth of a plant become something, and it transforms. And only when you're, I guess, paying attention to it, like it, as you mentioned earlier, like consumers, they just go to the store and they purchase it. But then, you know, if you really do want to dive a little bit deeper into it, there is that opportunity. You know, you take something like an apple juice, something very, I guess, relatively less. Anyways, you could take something like an apple juice and then go to the farmer and go to the farmer's market, talk to the farmer, see how it transforms. And I know that a lot of these folks are very keen on like telling you because they're proud of it.
Absolutely. I think, you know, so much education happens at the grassroots level. You know, it's that interpersonal moment that is so crucial to learning, whether that's something you're looking to learn more about as a career in terms of delivering those experiences, or just engaging in it yourself. So getting out there into the communities is really a great way of getting started, and doing it yourself. You know, I try and, you know, not manufacture, but create the opportunities for those kinds of connections at the Royal as much as we can. You know, we get as many as 12,000 students through. Perhaps there's not the opportunity to create a one-on-one moment for every single one of them, but if I can get, you know, a fraction of them, then hopefully that's really meaningful and can lead to more curiosity, I think is ultimately the goal. But I think that that's a good way of thinking about it for a career searcher too. Kind of just lead with curiosity and have some conversations with people.
And is there any, I guess, particular, when you're thinking about making these connections, is there anything in particular that you're trying to like, I guess we think about, you know, I know where I'm going to jump with this question. With the agriculture side, you mentioned that there's a lot of different types of roles. Like maybe for someone who's listening, that when they listen to That's a Food Job, they're more on like the manufacturing side and that's what they see. But when it comes to the agriculture side, what are some of the roles that are available that aren't just a farmer? I think that's what a lot of people think about.
Yeah, oh my gosh, there are so many, you know, from automotive technicians, you know, because so much of farming relies on machinery, to coding and computer science, because there's so much innovation happening around robotics in agriculture, drones, GPS, all of those technologies are so crucial. You know, there's roles in communication. There's roles like myself that is education based. You know, there's a lot of organizations that are engaging in outreach and communication and storytelling and trying to engage with consumers to tell the story of agriculture. So that is a huge role in the food system. There's so much. There's design and, of course, you know, like the legal side of things and sustainability and environmental science and soil science. So much goes into the field of agriculture beyond just farming itself, you know, the act of farming itself. There's so much that kind of needs to go into what we call the food system to support it and uphold it. So I kind of like using the terminology of food system just because to me it really captures, you know, all the different aspects that have to come together to make this possible in all the different roles.
Wow. And would you say as well, it's an industry where it's something that you could like move around a lot and it's like a lifelong career, or like something that someone could join in later on? Because I think maybe something like pharmaceuticals, then again, I don't know much about the pharmaceutical industry, but I would imagine that it's a little bit of a harder field to just like go into later on in life. Would you say that the agricultural side is something that, you know, you can come from all walks of life?
I mean, I think I'm certainly an example of a way in which you can do that. Again, I think because agriculture itself does touch literally everyone, in that everybody eats, everybody is part of this food system, if I'm going to keep with my nomenclature that I've assigned, that we are all engaged with it. And so I do think that there's a lot of skills that can be brought to the food system and to roles in agri-food that can be brought sort of later in life or returned to perhaps. There's a lot of room for bringing those transferable skills.
I really like this collaboration piece. In a way, you've mentioned many times that, you know, the agricultural side and the food side, maybe they need a little bit more, but maybe that's the exciting opportunity that can exist for someone to come in, even if they didn't have that background before, because they can see that new perspective that maybe those that have been in the industry for much longer might not see, or they just wish that they had, you know, someone with that. So I think that builds a new opportunity of you can be someone who's newer to the industry and you can still build those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is, you know, a growing sort of field of just agriculture education in general, whether it is explicitly in the classrooms or kind of more focused towards the general consumer. So folks who might just have a passion for education or, hey, I like to eat like I did.
That's true.
I love food. Can really come to it with sort of just that passion for wanting to connect with people, wanting to, you know, tell a story effectively, and bringing those skills to the table is very important in the agriculture field right now.
And what's also nice as well is that with food, everyone has some relation to it. We eat every day. We try different beverages. We have different stories, different, you know, stories from our past, from what we grew up on, things that we're new experiencing. So it's something that everyone has experience in without them realizing. You know, they've tasted food. Absolutely. And that can bring so much passion in the industry, and it's a very accepting, like, you know, bringing in new people, like they want to better promote it. And I think that is an exciting area for people to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much passion in the agriculture industry in general. A lot of the folks that I have come across are just so incredibly excited about what they're doing, whether it's engaging in research, whether it's the sort of similar outreach communication role as I have, or whether it's the farmers themselves who are so deeply passionate about what they do. So I think as long as someone is coming in with that kind of passion and excitement about it, there's so much opportunity.
For sure. And thinking about the Royal, I mean, obviously you can make it what you want, but do you have any like shout out things that you always like to tell people to go check out because it's maybe your favorite thing?
Okay. Oh, wow. I am a big fan of going through the agriculture competition displays. That's where you can find the giant vegetables and the giant pumpkins. Those are just so cool. They still blow my mind to this day, how massive these pumpkins can get. So I love doing that. I also love seeing the sheep shearing. These people are so skilled in the way that they can just do this kind of magic. So I love to see that every day. And then I love the petting farm. That hands-on moment with an animal is just so lovely. So I do really enjoy those things. And I think there's opportunities to learn in all of those things, which I also love. So I would say those are my personal highlights, but I know someone else, might have some others, which is what's so cool about the Royals, that there really is. You can choose your own adventure a little bit.
That's very true. Yeah, and as someone who's gone there from the food side, as like my food hat comes on a lot of times, and I love going and just eating.
Totally.
Like there's so much good food there. There's all these amazing cheeses, beverages from like small farms to the bigger farms to the new startups to the very established people. There's just so much good food, and you can just like eat your way through the Royal.
For sure. Yeah, and I want to shout out our champion showcase area, which does gather all of the winners from our competitions to sort of sample and sell. So that's a super cool area where you get to kind of learn about what makes a champion cheese and what sets it apart, and you can talk to the producers. And that's going to be a really fun experience for our foodies among us.
Yeah, and as you're saying it does key in to remind me that, the Royal's also another special place in the sense that you get to talk to the people who make it. It's not that you can't do that before, but it's very hard to find that many people directly connected to the food that are able to talk to exactly what they do. It's not, you go to the grocery store. If you really want to talk to someone, you have to go reach out on LinkedIn or go to the company website. And I know that many producers will do farm tours, which is great, and show how it's made. So but fantastic. To just like be able to go from one table to the next and talk, like it's just, there's so many amazing people and you can learn so much there.
And I think, I've been there for going on 5 years now, and I'm still learning every day, and I still feel there's so many areas in which I need to continue to learn. For example, I learned all about, the brick scale and maple syrup and how they measure the sugar content and the color. And it's incredibly technical, and these folks are so passionate about it, and that's so amazing, but it's something I never would have even thought to ask about, but through kind of engaging with the producers, I kind of got shown into this whole new world of something that's iconically Canadian, like our butter tarts, which are also awesome at the fair. So it's really cool.
Yeah, for sure they are.
They're so good, so good.
Yeah. Oh, they're so good. And coming back to earlier, so we mentioned, okay, so if someone wants to explore agriculture a little bit more, they could, go to the farmers market. But is there opportunities for like memberships or clubs, or like for someone who's new to that world, like what is available for resources to get into the world? Like, you've taken your step forward, you liked the farmers market, but now you're like, oh, I want to be a little bit more curious. I want to get involved somehow. What are some opportunities someone could do?
Yeah, I think the local fairs are a great place to start. So many of them are run by volunteers, and it's an awesome network and community. 4-H often has awesome programs. They do garden programs. So while a lot of their programming is livestock centered, there's also opportunities to get involved. You don't necessarily have an actual working farm, right? I'm not going to be raising a calf, but I might be able to plant a garden. So they have amazing resources. There's also educational resources out there. There's, Agriculture in the Classroom Canada and Agscape, which is the Ontario branch, which run educational programming and also have a network of volunteers. So you can engage in that way. and sort of meet like-minded people and get connected.
Hey, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes because, I think that there's so many opportunities and it's about, again, we come back to that idea of connections and speaking with people. And I really like for those that are listening to really encourage you to just reach out and try to start talking to people. Like don't, learn about the job through all the resources, but take it a step further. See if you can speak to someone because you never know, maybe you might be super into tech and then you realize through a conversation, oh, there's a need for this. And then you could be that connector that combines it. So I think that it's so great that there is there's resources out there, but at the end of the day, it's those conversations that help push the industry forward.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of making connections, like so many of these commodity groups and other educational organizations, like you mentioned, run the farm tours, and that's honestly an amazing way to kind of get engaged and to ask questions and to have the opportunity to explore areas that you might not have even known a lot about. So I know Farm and Food Care does a lot of those, connected with various commodity organizations. But if you search basically blank farmers of Ontario, for example, and put in any commodity you can think of and search it up, there's usually outreach programs that are being run that you can get involved in, or come to, or just learn about. So there's lots of opportunities that way.
And for those that are also listening, maybe they just realized that a career like yours existed, or maybe they're just learning about the fair and maybe they're new to the Royal. What is one thing that you'd want them to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've said it a lot, but I really think just the variety of opportunities that a career in agri-food can offer, or that you can come to it in many different ways. So I think that a role in agri-food is really rewarding because it presents those variety of opportunities and variety of learnings, but also that it requires so many different people to function and so many different roles coming from so many different fields, different knowledge bases and backgrounds. So I would say that if you are even remotely inclined towards agri-food, there's probably a role for you. So it's a matter of connecting with resources like AgScape, Ag Careers, and then like the Canadian Agricultural Resource Council. Lots of different resources out there that can be accessed and that are geared towards trying to connect folks to the agri-food sector. So the Royal is one piece of that larger apparatus of all these different folks who are really trying to just, again, reach out that hand.
I love that. And, I know that we're recording this during your planning stage when it comes to the Royal for next year. But for those that are thinking about going next year, do you have any shout outs or I guess, could you buy tickets right now? Is it a little too early for that? Or when should they be paying attention to the news? Yeah.
So late summer is typically when we start to roll out tickets. If you're interested in the horse show, there are specific sales for that. So, the best way to know is to sign up for our newsletters to get sort of those early bird access codes and all of that good stuff. But we really start rolling out in the late summer, early fall, as we're heading into our execution phase. So it gets very real around September. We're full steam ahead. It's Royal time.
I love it. I love it. It takes a village. It takes a country, I guess you could say, to bring this all together with all the different types of people from coast to coast, from
all the folks we collaborate with.
Yes, it takes a lot, and obviously your role is bringing them together, and it goes to show that you don't have to be in the fields to get a part of agriculture. You don't need to be in the manufacturing facilities. You don't have to be. There's something for everyone, and if you want to make those connections, it's so good, and it's what the industry needs. So thank you so much, Paige, for sitting down with me, telling me more about your role, telling me about the Royal. It's so amazing that it keeps going, and it's obviously because of the passion and the need for it. So excited for the 2026 Royal this year.
Royal 104, we're excited. Thank you so much for having me, and hope to see you at the fair.
Yeah, for sure.